What if Superman's parents' message never got damaged in transmission? So in Superman there was a plot twist where his original family, the ones from Krypton, sent a message to tell him what they want him to do on Earth as their final message, and what they've sent him here to actually do. And that message is a huge part of who he is and what he does and why he does it. Not to mention his Earth parents helped to raise him massively and distill those values in him. But his Kryptonian parents saying that also helps a lot. Especially because in the first scene of the film he got the brakes beat off him and he listened to the message to soothe him and get his motivation back. But Superman's message was broken in transmission. So all he got was the good side. Saying, oh, we want you to be kind, gentle, be nice to humans, save them. But that wasn't the original message. The original message had that, but the other half was enslave them, they're stupid, get a couple ladies, all this and all that. So what would happen if the message was not broken in transmission? What would he do? What about his Earth parents, and could anybody stop him? You know, they wanted him to be a Viltrumite. And just to be clear, and this was a real message, Lex was not messing this message up on purpose.
In the movie, Mr. Terrific says, I know those computer forensics guys, there's no way. That's Mr. Terrific. Smart as Lex Luthor. You know, Gurko says, you doctored a message. This is great. And Lex says, it's not a message. It's not doctored. Right. It's real. And who thought his own parents would be the ones to bring him down?
Okay. We just clarified. Just for the record. I just want to get it down.
Even the director, James Gunn, said that this was their full message. So what would happen if the message wasn't broken in transmission? In the message of Superman's original parents, they gave some directions on how Superman would go about taking over Earth, and also how to treat the humans, which was lord over them like a dictator and kill anyone who doesn't serve you, because the people are weak of body, spirit, and mind. Yeah, they kind of cooked us on that one. Now, obviously, when Superman later on heard this message in the movie, it didn't work out at all, because of how his parents from Earth raised him. So he was 30 years old when he heard this full message, and he had definitely already become the man he will be forever at this moment. But in the other universe where the message isn't damaged, this would definitely change the way that Superman sees his Earth parents and how he would respond to their teachings. Now, just for the record, I don't know when Superman got the access to this message, but just for the video, I'm going to say he gets it the second he makes it to Earth, or maybe even before then, I'm not sure. And before anyone says it, no, the message is not linked to the Fortress of Solitude. So I think that Superman would use his parents at the start, unlike in the comics where Superman was also evil, in which he just threatened them to raise him. I don't think he would do that. I also don't think that he would tell his parents about what his actual plan is, because, because to them that's going to sound completely outrageous and they probably won't want any part in that. And also it's a complete opposite of how they would want him to be. Personally, I think he would grow distant from the Kent family, because he just wouldn't view them as his real parents, because their views are so different to his original Kryptonian parents, and he would see them as aliens to him. Now, obviously the Kents did have a lot of love and humanity to pass on to Superman, so there definitely is also a chance in this universe that they could talk him down from being a dictator, but there's also a chance that he grows mushrooms on his toes, we're just not going to talk about it. I think he would wait till he's strong enough to take care of himself, maybe even as a teenager, and he would just leave the Kent house and never come back. He would simply just do the Black Father technique and say he's getting some milk. Now, while he's out, he would probably get an understanding of all the other metahumans out there, especially the ones that could definitely hurt him, like Guy Gardner from the Green Lantern Corps. I reckon he would help these guys out, grooming them, to be precise, and see if they have a weakness that he could take advantage of. And no, he's not using the color yellow on Green Lanterns. I hate that that's a thing. I honestly hate that that's a thing. It shouldn't be a weakness. It's ridiculous. It's a stupid weakness. Whoever wrote this as a weakness should never, ever, ever be able to drink milk again. They don't deserve that type of bliss. It's like one of his dumbest weaknesses ever. And then the wood one as well. I mean, that's ridiculous. I think it was just comic book writers clutching at straws to try and make Batman be able to beat him, because it's the dumbest weakness I've heard of in my life. And the fact that if his ring just gets nicked, he can't just get it back in some occasions. Surely it would just have safety measures or something, because in the comics he made one out of the thin air. I'm sure it can't just get nicked that easily if you can just make one out of thin air. Come on, man. But okay, back to it. So obviously he would wait till he's strong enough to fight them, taking enough sun exposure or working out, other things like that to ensure he does not lose. Personally, I don't think he would be doing too much of it though, because he would see everyone else as weak, he would grow cocky, arrogant about his powers, considering that his parents told him these guys are absolute losers. Check them out. You can overpower them easily. Don't worry about training to fight these donkeys. So he would just put himself above them. Now, I'm not sure how the sun would affect this Superman, considering how it affected him in the movie where he's screaming when it's healing him. I'm not saying he would become overpowered from the sun, but I am saying that it could give a different effect, especially because he was nerfed so massively in this film in comparison to all the other movies he's been in. The character, not the actor. You know, a lot of people said that he was screaming in pain from healing his injuries because all of his bones and stuff were getting snapped back so violently. Which makes a lot of sense, but not a lot of sense. Like, it doesn't make all the sense. I don't think Superman would come to the other superpowered people and say, hey guys, slavery's pretty cool. Do you want to be like my slave or something? That cotton looks real nice. Definitely not a good start, at least. I think he would try to kill them or at least fight them into super slaves. I don't know. Why? Because he would want to be the only leader. It's a dictatorship, not a co-tatorship. Is that what they're called? Also, all his time with these people would help him be more knowledgeable with what they stand for and against. So, you know, Mr. Terrific probably doesn't want to get to the fields, you know? And I hope that I don't need to point out that superheroes aren't cool with the farms, okay? Let alone picking cotton from them. So how would Big Blue invade Earth? Because that's the main goal. Well, considering that in the first scene of the movie it's mentioned that Superman is the strongest metahuman on Earth, I believe his original plan would be strictly one-on-ones and trying to do it stealthily or off-planet. But I don't think it would go like that, because inevitably one of the fights would break out or someone would solve it. You know, there's a lot of really smart people in this universe, so they would find out what's been going on. Look at all the journalism here. That Clark Kent guy's really smart, you know. He seems to know a lot about Superman, and it would just be chaos. So obviously the main villain of the movie, Lex Luthor, would rear his big shining bald head and spin it the way he would like to, because even if it looked like Superman was in the right in this fight, somehow Lex would try his hardest to spin it and make it look like Superman was the one in the wrong. Also, I do think Lex would still hate Superman even if he didn't have the same amount of humanity as he originally does, because Lex is obviously power hungry and no one can have more power than him, so he would hate Superman. Superman would be shown as a villain in this universe, so now that the cat's out of the bag, who would try to stop him? Obviously everyone. Obviously he would win if he fought everyone one by one, so everyone would be like, oh, it would be quite a smart idea if we, you know, teamed up for once, you know, then go back to business. You know, you can give us a 10-minute head start once this is over. That's a good reference. It would be everyone versus him, apart from like the 2 or 3 he killed. They wouldn't really be heavy hitters, so, you know, we're not really going to name them. Ultraman would not be partaking in this fight, by the way, because he hasn't been made yet. But everyone else would be here, like Green Lantern. Guy Gardner, not my favourite one though. Carl Rayner and Hal Jordan. That guy is so cool. So the question you all want the answer to, does Superman take over Earth? Well, it's incredibly tricky because he's up against so many people. Like, who do we have? Lex Luthor, Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, the shapeshifting fella, and a whole bunch of goons. Not like that. Not like that. I mean this goon, not the other one. So does Superman take over? No! And it's obvious. The guy who can turn his body into any material is cooking him when he gets close. He would be protected by the other heroes because they know what they're supposed to do. And seeing that there's lots of heroes and villains and the military, this guy is cooked. Even if the Kryptonite Hands guy wasn't there, the one that can shapeshift, Supes would still lose because he's nerfed and won't be able to fight back as you would expect him to because of all the bad things that's... I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I'm just waiting for it to hit 8 minutes. See ya.